Welcome to the Brilliant Black Man Show, created to bring to light the success stories of Black men all around the world. It is the mission and goal of Melissa Johnson to share these incredible, talented, and successful men with viewers across the country. Wake up, America, and listen to the interviews of these strong Black men who are making a difference in their family, community, boardroom, and the world. They are building empires and leaving a legacy. Their life story and success matters, and it's Melissa's goal to change the narrative of how the Black man is portrayed in the media, streets, home, workplace, and beyond. Join Melissa on a journey to bring awareness to the brilliance of the Black man on the Transformation Network. Follow the interviews as these men speak on the importance of entrepreneurship, education, financial literacy, legacy building, and building Black businesses within their communities. Now, here is your host.
Hello, this is Melissa Johnson from WOW Ministries with the Brilliant Black Man Show. I would like to welcome my guest today, Mr. John Martin, the CEO and co-founder of YBLA. Welcome to the Brilliant Black Man Show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's such a delight to interview him on today. We connect in several different ways, and you'll hear more about that today in our interview. I would like to have Mr. Martin just start this interview with a little introduction, and then we're going to get into the questions that we have for him today.
All right.
Mr. Martin.
Okay, so first of all, my name is John Martin, CEO, co-founder of Young Black Leadership Alliance. Mm-hmm. We also go by YBLA. The most important thing that you guys should know, I am the husband of Tammy Martin and the father of Jayla Martin. Everything else doesn't really matter for my brilliance. So they are the ones who bring the brilliance to me and keep me humble and keep me going as well. Our organization does leadership development, college readiness for young Black men and women, high school, college, and young professionals.
Absolutely. Thank you again for that introduction.
You're welcome.
I would like to start here, Mr. Martin. You said this in different interviews, as well as your wife. They were interviewing your wife one day. And she said that the reason why Mr. Martin is doing what he's doing is because he did not want to just be successful. Yeah. He wanted to have significance. And I thought about that statement and I pondered that as I was preparing for your interview over and over and over. And I have a colleague and his whole ministry is around significance. Okay. And when I thought about significance, I thought maybe that term and the way you were using it was the same as purpose, walking in your purpose. Okay. And when I was driving to work early this morning, it hit me. And I thought about exactly what you do. Okay. And when I thought about the young men and the young women that you are training and building to be the next generation of leaders, it hit me that maybe he's saying making a significance in other people's lives.
Oh, okay.
What does it mean to you?
There's a lot to unpack there. So when I think about success and significance, so as a person, so there's lots of successful people that we have in our community in the Black race. Success to me is someone that can take care of their family, someone that can take care of themselves, and just really buy what they need and really just be, right? And there's different levels of success, right? So you have some folks that are just getting by, and you have some people that are doing amazingly well. The next level up for me is significance. And that significance is really about not only being able to take care of yourself, being able to take care of your family, but also really investing back in our community. Okay. So if you think about it, the Black race, we have plenty of money. Like if you put us on a scale of nations, we would be in the top 10 of nations in terms of our economic wealth, right? So the problem is there's lots of individually successful people. But if you bring us all together and collectively we start to make impact, that impact creates significance. And that's that level of significance that we're talking about. Yes, making a difference in someone's life is wholly significant.
Mhm,
I do what I do because that's what God created me to do.
mhm,
So yes, it is your highest purpose
mhm,
to give back, but we're all communal beings.
mhm,
And our design is really designed around giving back to others and
Mhm.
lifting others up. So if we all collectively thought about lifting at least one person up,
mhm.
then we would be a significant race, and then we would also be significant individuals.
Excellent, excellent. I'm gonna start with the introduction. I created this show because I wanted to show our men in a different light.
Yep.
And I wanted to change the narrative of
Yeah.
how we view Black men. I also heard in one of your interviews.
Okay. You've been watching my
Oh,
interviews?
yes.
That's great.
And that you're not happy about how they view or how the world view Black men.
Yeah,
And you wanted to change that. I
Yeah.
think we connect right there.
yeah.
How do you want to change it and how are you changing?
So the first thing I think about is why I started the organization.
Okay.
There's a longer story that I could fill up the whole thing with that,
Mhm.
but really at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it came from a vision from God that said, hey, what kind of impact can you individually have on young Black men?
Okay.
And when I came back kind of out of that, and I started looking at just young Black men in general, and obviously young Black men turn into
Mhm.
Black men, right? So
Right.
so
right.
I started looking at the statistics, and what I found is that young Black men and Black men in general are at the top of all the wrong statistics and at the bottom of all the right statistics. So you look at something as easy as, people obviously look at prison rates, right? So we're in the top of prison rates. So, but we're at the bottom of college graduation rates.
Mhm.
If you look at something from a young man's perspective, ACT or SAT scores,
Mhm.
young Black men are at the bottom of the ACT score, or SAT scores,
Mhm.
below non-English speaking citizens.
Mhm.
So if you look at a stat like that, you're just like, I don't understand how that could even happen.
Mhm.
So the narrative then becomes all these negative statistics, and we never talk about how great we are as fathers, right? So if you look at fatherhood, we're in a great spot in terms of the way we do for fatherhood,
Mhm.
but you would never think that because of all the negative talk,
Negative,
the
right.
negative narrative that's
Mhm.
out there. So how does one individual help people?
Yeah.
And that's really the message. Like, how do I, as a Black man,
Mhm.
help young Black men?
Yes.
The stuff that I've gone through, how do I help them skip off some of that,
Mhm.
and then get to learn some of the things, or get to benefit from some of the things that I've learned?
Yes. So I'm not going off of my notes so much, okay?
Awesome.
But I do have some quotes.
All right.
Let me ask you this. I was preparing for this interview
Mhm.
and I was speaking with one of my colleagues,
Okay.
and I'm sure you get this question asked many of times.
Mhm.
I was preparing and looking at stats, and I was asking the person, I said, I need some stats on young men that are doing well,
Yeah.
that are leading.
Mhm.
Can you help me out? Well, why is he helping just young men that are doing well? Why wouldn't he help all young men?
Yeah.
And I know that question is asked a lot.
Yeah.
My son's father was in education,
Mhm.
and it was always asked as if one person
Yeah.
can save all mankind.
Yeah.
And so I said, his calling is to this particular group of
Right.
people, but
Right.
I'm gonna let you say it in your own words.
No, I think that's it's a multi-layer answer to
Okay.
that. I think your first answer is absolutely right. So we got to do what God created us to do.
Mhm,
God created me to work with a specific group of young Black men.
mhm,
I think what happens in our community is, to your point, we try to create an organization that's going to save everybody.
mhm,
And if you think about anything in society, any business, there's no business that tries to work and save everybody.
mhm,
You have to be very intentional and very niche. There's a drastic difference between different groups of people within our community.
mhm,
What some people try to do is paint us with a broad brush and say, all young Black men are this, or all
Right.
young Black men are that.
right.
So that's why you end up with kind of this weird organizations that are trying to do it all.
Mhm.
So that's kind of one side of it. The other side of it is what we are really intentional about is building leaders.
Right.
And the idea is if I can build one leader that impacts 10 other people,
Mhm.
that then impacts 10 other people, that then impacts 10 other people, what we've created is a self-generating system, right? And that
Mhm.
system solves the problem. Most of the time, most organizations are thinking about how do I put a Band-Aid on a problem?
Right.
Right? How do I do that?
Right.
So you'll see some of our young men that'll come up after me.
Mhm.
So the idea is if I can develop a leader, that leader's going to have way more influence than I am.
Mhm.
So as an example, if I go to an elementary school, and we see this all the time, right?
Mhm.
I go into an elementary school
Mhm.
and I go to talk about reading.
Mhm.
I have about 45 seconds and they're like, it's somebody's grandpa.
Mhm.
Like they literally think,
Mhm.
I mean, it's insulting to me now. Listen, I promise you, it's insulting. They think that's somebody's grandpa. And after about 45 seconds, they tune me out.
Okay.
But you'll see some of our young men that come up, they got their hair braided, they have tattoos on them,
Mhm.
and they're a couple levels above, right?
Mhm.
These are the leaders of our community.
Mhm.
And if you could have our leader of our community be a young person and have that young person then go back and talk to an elementary school student or a middle school student or a high school
Right.
student, what
Right.
they see is that's the next step.
That's
Right.
right.
Now, if
They
you
can
don't
see
put
it.
success in front of our young people, guess what happens? You
Mhm.
continually put failure and you continue to put people that are struggling in front of them.
Mhm.
They move in that direction. Young people move in the direction that the course is going.
Mhm.
So our job as adults is to find enough successful young people, put them in front of them and move in that direction.
Wow.
It's common sense, actually.
That's great.
Yeah.
I remember another quote. You said that if you change one person
Yeah.
from that community,
Mhm.
that person can change the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so what you
How
got to
is
do is you really got to bet on people, right?
Mhm.
So you got to identify these young leaders and say, how do I invest in that young leader?
Mhm.
And again, it comes back to that success versus significance, right? So that's
Okay.
when this really
Mhm.
comes into play.
Okay.
So you'll see our young people, they're going to be successful, right? So the question you asked me was, well, why work with successful, right?
Mhm.
So if I can take a young person and turn them from being successful into being significant
Mhm.
at a young age,
Mhm.
we're going to business school now. So my return on investment
Right.
becomes much longer.
Great.
Right.
Mhm.
So if I get an 18-year-old and I teach them about leadership, I teach them about service, I teach them about education.
Mhm.
But the number one thing I teach that young person is how to impact and influence their peers.
Mhm.
So if I can do that, and I got a kid, who's 18, 19, 20 years old, travels the world, does all these things, and then goes back and gives back for the rest of his life. Let's say he lives another 60 years. How many people is that one person going to influence and impact? Not only their family, right? So now we're talking about if you want to impact generations, the way to do that is to get to the parents.
Mhm.
But you can't get to a parent when they're a parent. You want to get to a parent when they're in high school or when they're in college. Train them how to be a parent.
Mhm.
By the time they have a kid, it's too late.
Mhm.
So now we're thinking we're making generational moves that people just don't really understand or get.
Mhm.
So our job is to focus and really specifically focus on our market and say, okay, let's build significance. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do that. And the more we do that, the wider we do that, the more impactful we'll be. We probably won't even see the end of it.
Wow. In our generation.
That's right.
So you began this organization in what year?
2006,
2006.
many moons ago. Many
Oh my
moons ago.
gosh. And at that time it was named
YBM.
YBM.
So it's Young Black Male
Young Black
Leadership
Male.
Alliance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can I just give a little a little story?
Yes.
I have a child. He's in college now, but at the time he was in high school. We were new to Charlotte.
Mhm.
And his dad went somewhere and found this book, and it was I don't know if it was a magazine. I can't
It was.
remember that it was a magazine.
Yep, yep.
And on the front of this magazine, it had maybe 15 or 20 Black men.
Yes.
And when I saw that image of those young Black men on
Yeah.
that cover of that magazine,
Yeah.
I said, you have to be a part of that program.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And at the time, Caleb was an honor student. I believe he joined the organization. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if it was grades or whatever,
Yeah.
but he was excited about the program.
Yeah.
And now we are a full circle.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing the man that made a difference on that cover of that magazine.
go.
What was the name of that?
So
Book.
it was the top 100 young Black men of Charlotte at the time.
Charlotte
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
Wow. So you started in 2006.
Yes.
And so when you started, you wanted to change the narrative of young men. So it was only for young men.
Yes.
What age group and what grade point average was your target?
So at that time, it was high school,
Mhm.
11th grade.
Oh, 11th grade.
Yeah, 11th grade,
Okay.
and it was a 3.0 grade point average.
Okay.
And we did that for two reasons.
Mhm.
One, we knew that we were going to ask a lot of the students.
Mhm,
So we worked them really, really hard.
mhm.
And what you don't want to do is have a young person that's struggling and then you be the reason why they don't succeed.
Mhm.
The second thing is what I talked about earlier. We're creating peer mentors, we're creating leaders, we're creating change agents.
Mhm.
So when you ask one of these young men to go to talk to a middle school student or an
Mhm.
elementary school student,
Mhm.
you want to make sure you're starting with the right stock. You want to make sure that person's moving in the right direction because they're going to have a huge influence on this young
Influence.
person.
Right.
So what Caleb saw in
Mhm.
that picture
Mhm.
was himself dressed up, himself being successful, himself moving to that level of significance. So that image is what we use to change the narrative. So you talked about changing the narrative.
Mhm.
The way to do that is to show positive images that look like them.
Us. Right.
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 But if you look around through the news, you look around through videos, you look around through all
Right.
the media sources and outlets, there's not very many options of that.
And you're so right. We are from Detroit.
Born there.
And- Well, you're from Detroit?
I was born there.
Oh my God,
There
we
you
have
go.
so much in
There you
common.
go. Born there.
Oh, I was born and raised in Detroit as well. And we moved here in 2013.
Mhm.
And so when we saw that Caleb was in private school all of his life,
Mhm.
he was the only Black little boy in private school.
Yeah.
And so he didn't see any young men
Yeah.
that looked like him.
Yeah.
And so he thought success was only for a certain group of kids.
Yeah. It's
But when we
interesting.
came here and he saw that,
Yeah.
he was like, there's other kids, young men that are smart
Yeah.
and that are articulate and that want to do something in life.
Yeah. It's interesting. We do a what we call a GPA game. So we have our conferences, and
Mhm.
typically at the time, we would have 500-600 young Black men and their parents in the room, and we'd ask them to stand up. Like everybody have a 3-0 stand up. Parents clapping, going crazy. And what we would do then is say, hey, if you have a 3-2, remain standing, and 3-5, remain
Mhm.
standing, and 3-7, and
Mhm.
4-2, and
Mhm.
4-5.
Mhm.
And we get to the last young man, and we just give that young man, have him come up, tell us who he is,
Mhm.
and then just give him a round of applause. And just the feeling that he would get for the work that he's done,
Done, right.
you'd never get that in our community, right?
Right.
Everyone knows who the star quarterback is.
Mhm.
Everybody knows who, the best basketball player
Mhm.
is, who the best
Mhm.
dancer, who can rap. 0 people in our community know who has the top grade point average.
Mhm.
Right. And those are the things that we have to do. If we're going to change the narrative, we have to be intentional about what we want the narrative to
Intentional.
be. Like
Right.
right now, we're letting people control what our narrative is what we watch, what we see on TV.
Mhm.
So what we have to do, collectively, and you're doing it here, right,
Mhm.
is really dictate what our narrative is going to be.
Mhm.
Because if you don't, what happens? Someone else will do that.
Someone else would do
Right.
it, right? So you started YBM
Yes.
and then your wife started
Yeah.
YBW.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes.
Then it became one,
YBLA.
YBLA.
Yep. Absolutely.
Your goal, your mission, your purpose is to build leaders.
Yes.
I thought about that,
Mhm.
John. I thought about building leaders, and I thought about children having 3.0 average.
Yep.
Gifted, intelligent, maybe would go to college. How do you turn that into, let me rephrase that. How do you get them to buy into
Yeah.
that significance, where they take ownership
Mhm.
of it and it become their pursuit and not just what we want for them?
So the interesting thing
Mhm.
is that our young people actually cherish that. They desire that. They
Mhm.
desire to make a difference. If you talk to any young person nowadays,
Mhm.
what you'll hear from them, way more than what we used to do back when we were growing up, you'll
Mhm.
hear from them the desire to want to make a difference in our
Mhm.
world.
Mhm.
They need that. Now, what they don't get a lot of is the opportunity to actually make that difference.
Okay.
So what happens in most organizations and schools,
Mhm.
there's a lot of talking to them, right?
Mhm.
So you sit them down, let me tell you about leadership. And you'll bring up, 12 CEOs or 5 people that don't look
Look
like
like
them,
them, right.
that don't have no concept of
Mhm.
understanding of who they are and what they're going through,
Mhm.
and they'll talk to them.
Mhm.
And then out of this, magically, they're supposed to turn into leaders.
Mhm.
So that's the equivalent of sitting someone down and putting up slides about how to shoot a free throw
Mhm.
in basketball.
Mhm.
And then putting the person in the game and expecting that young person to be able to make a free throw, zero probability that that's going to be successful.
Mhm.
So what we do is we believe the best way to learn how to lead is to lead,
Mhm.
right? So we put them in leadership situations.
Okay.
So when we have a fundraiser, our young people run the fundraiser. When
Okay.
we go on a service trip, every day we have our young people lead the service trip.
Mhm.
When we go on a business trip, our young people are leading the business trip. They're
Mhm.
doing the planning, they're doing the whole part of the process. So they need that, they love that, and then they get support based on that.
Mhm.
The other thing is we take them through the same professional development that leaders get in corporations. So our students get Toastmaster certification. They have 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teams
Mhm.
training.
Mhm.
Truist has an emerging leaders training that they have for high school and college students. They get that certification. We have our own impact leadership certification that we take them through.
Mhm.
Then after we do all that, we take them on trips because we know the best way to get through your experience is actually to see it and to feel it.
See it, right.
So as an example, you'll hear from Harold Lowe, which is one of our ambassadors coming up. He went to Haiti with us twice. The experience in Haiti where you actually go into a place where a lot of folks don't have running water or power, but they're the friendliest, loving, God-fearing people that you ever see.
Mhm.
You go to serve, but you get out of it more than you feel.
Well, absolutely.
The other two
Absolutely.
ambassadors went to Jamaica with us
Yes.
this summer.
Mhm.
So again, taking them to and putting
Yeah.
them in situations
Yes.
where totally different.
Mhm.
Cool thing is, as an example, we took our young people to Dubai,
Mhm.
and people were like, "You went to Dubai? Like, why'd you go to Dubai?" It's like,
Mhm.
I went to Dubai because we have the audacity to take some young Black people to
Right.
Dubai. No one else is doing that. Like, if you go in any other organization,
Right.
I don't care which other organization you go.
Well,
it's
they
like,
going to Ecuador.
that's right. Where y'all going? So we went to Dubai, we went to South Africa, Johannesburg,
Right,
Cape
yeah.
Town, just because it's a totally different experience.
Exposed
We
to
we literally were this far from a lion.
Mhm.
Like that's a whole different mental
Yeah.
experience that you have when you see this thing that's as big
Mhm.
as a car, like literally right next to you.
Wow.
So it's just a different perspective. And you know what? It doesn't cost that much more to go
Yeah.
from literally to go to South Africa or California. I mean,
Right.
you're in the same general neighborhood. So
Right.
why not expose our young people to
greatness.
to the greatness
Right.
of our world?
Right. That is awesome. And I know in one of your interviews, you said the importance of exposure.
Oh my God.
It is so important
Oh
for
my
them
God.
to be able to see it,
See it.
to be
Yeah.
able to see it. Yes, I can achieve it.
Yeah.
To be able to see it.
I mean, even as adults, we have the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
when we're looking to achieve something, what do? We go on the internet, we try to find someone else that looks like us that's doing
right.
it,
That's
right?
doing it or has done it.
Or has done it. And
Has
then
done
you start to swell up like, okay, well, if they did it,
I can
they
do it.
kind of look like me and I could do it too.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, so what we've done is, so we started with our high school program.
Mhm.
We moved, once they graduate from high school, we created a college program.
Mhm.
Once they graduate from college, we created a young professional program. So now we have this pipeline from high school, college into the young professionals.
Okay.
And then what happens is our young professionals talk to our college students, our college
Yeah.
students talk to our high school students, our high school students talk to middle school and elementary school students.
Mhm.
So we've created this pipeline of success of leaders in our community. As we expand that throughout our nation, throughout the world,
Mhm.
the number of leaders that we have continues to grow.
In our community,
Right.
right.
So why work with this group? Because we need leaders in our
We need
community.
leaders
Like
in
if
our
you just looked
communities.
around and said, what do we need? What are we missing? We got money, we got people, we have resources. What don't we have a lot of? we don't have an abundance of leaders that are significant, right?
So,
People that are not selfish, but people that are looking to uplift our community.
uplift our community. Can you give me a good definition of leadership?
Yeah, yeah. So leadership is the ability to get people to follow you, right?
Mhm.
To influence people. So you may not be in charge. You may not have the position,
Mhm.
but if you can influence people to follow you in a direction that you can go in. So a leader sets the vision,
Mhm.
he creates that vision, it says, set the vision and cast it out and make sure that people understand that they repeat that.
Mhm.
So that's the in 8 things that leaders do is set that vision and then get people to follow.
Mhm.
So, it's been said, like, if you're leading and you look around, nobody's following you, you're not really a leader.
That's good. You have 3 powerful leadership programs. We
Mhm.
want to talk about them just a little bit. One is your ambassador program.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about this Premier Leadership Development Program.
Yeah, so the ambassador program is our high school model.
It's the high
Actually
school
starts in
model.
high school, goes into college, and then we follow them from high school, college into the young professional.
Can I stop you for a moment?
Yes,
Because I know before you said it started at an 11th grade.
that's great.
What grade does it start now?
So the ambassador program still starts at
At
11th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, we have kind of a spin-off program that's a 10th grade model that we're piloting in
Okay.
schools. But
Okay.
our ambassador program starts in 11th grade. And the reason why we do that is we want some level of maturity,
Mhm.
and then we want to keep them in cohorts. So they start in a group, and then we can follow that group throughout their careers.
Mhm.
So that program starts in high school, starts in
Okay.
11th grade, flows into college, and then into the young professional.
Why did you name it ambassadors?
So, we were looking for, like, in terms of leadership, what do we want them to be able to do, right?
Mhm.
And really, an ambassador is someone that goes out and
Represents.
represents,
Mhm.
right? So we wanted them to represent our community,
Okay.
not us as an organization, but our community. So what do we want that community to look like, right?
Mhm.
So everything you see when we think about changing the narrative, we see them dressed in professional gear.
Mhm.
They have blazers, they look clean and sharp. They look like leaders.
Why is that important? And the second half
Yeah.
of that is, was it difficult to train these young men and young women on dressing for success? Was it reprogramming their mind? Was that a difficult task for you?
I'll answer, that's not a difficult task.
Okay.
When you set high expectations,
Mhm.
our young people will rise to
Rise
those
to-
occasions,
okay.
right?
Mhm.
So the thing that happens with a lot of our young people, there's a lot of good people in their lives that want to keep the bar really low, right?
Okay.
So don't challenge them, don't
Mhm.
don't do that, because they may not make it.
Mhm.
What we do is we have high expectation, but also high support.
Mhm.
So in terms of the way you look, really, you just have to explain to them, like, you want to look the part. Like, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be someone successful, you have to look the part. If you look up successful people in our community, you can see the transition that they make. Like, hey, 50 Cent used to look like this. Jay-Z used to look like this. Now he looks like this. Look how he's dressing.
Sean Puffy Combs.
Yeah, look how he's dressing now,
Right.
based on the way they used to dress. Then also go into the business environment. Look at our business professionals.
And
how
those
they
men
look.
are businessmen now.
They are businessmen.
They're billionaires.
Billionaires, right? Look how they look. They don't
Yes.
dress the way they used to.
No, they don't
right?
dress the way they used to
So the
dress.
thing is, you gotta tell them, you gotta dress the part. Like, if you
Mhm.
play football, you got a uniform. If you play basketball, you have a uniform.
Mhm.
You gotta wear the part. And people are going to assume, because of your black skin,
Mhm.
who you are. But if you show up looking a different way,
Mhm.
then that assumption gets discredited.
That's correct.
So you got to tell them that. So it's not hard, and they know coming into our organization what we're about. So the only reason why you would join the organization, because if you look on our website, you see blazers, you see success,
Right.
all of those
And
things.
this is what's expected.
This is
This
what
is what's
expected.
expected. Why leaders?
Interesting enough.
That's the name of your other program, right? Why?
Y leadership. Yep. So we have a Y leader program. So in that program, really, we created that. We've had different versions of that, but our current Y leader program is just for seniors.
Mhm.
It's a virtual program. And what we do is we focus on college and career readiness.
Mhm.
We
Okay.
created that so any young Black men or women that's a senior in high school, that's anywhere in the US could participate in that program. So all they have to do is it's actually virtual. So they call in and we have support. So that was a way of us providing a service to young Black men and women literally across the globe.
Okay, and then the last one, Black Talent Pipeline.
Black Talent Pipeline. So that program is our college program, along with our ambassador program. And the idea came about because we had a lot of our college partners, a lot of our company partners were coming together. And they were asking us about, hey, we can't find Black talent. We can't find Black talent. And what we did was basically connect them with our young people and say, hey, we want to bring together our Black talent with our college students and bring them together. So the Black Talent Pipeline. So we created a pipeline.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's talk about the state of our Black men. As I was preparing for this interview, I was speaking with one of my friends, and we went over that a little bit about why this particular group. But not only that, not just the scholastic achievement. These kids look different from other children. Usually programs are geared towards one type of person. You're doing something that is totally different. Why did you decide to pull up the Black man and the Black woman?
I mean, again, I was created for it. I knew that, if you're gonna make a difference in the world, you should really focus on things that you know about, right? So there's a lot of lived experience in what we do and what we do as an organization. The work that I did growing up, from sports to technology to program management to all of those things, aligned me and set me up to be able to do the work that I do now. The young people that I work with, I just love working with young people, and to be able to make a difference is critical on who I am. I mean, basically just who I am. The cool thing is we get to work with young people on different ends of the social economic backgrounds, different ends in terms of, family structure. So it's a diverse group within a non-diverse group. So which is really cool. So we may have a student that, like your son, goes to a private school, an all-white private school, feels like, hey, I'm the only Black kid in my school or in my class, on my grade, kind of feel like I'm on an island. I don't see other Blacks around me. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we may work with a young person that goes to a predominantly Black school that has a lot of low-income folks, and that person feels like, hey, there's only 7 of us in AP classes, right? So you bring those two groups together, and they may unite over something totally different that you wouldn't think about. So that's the coolness of the stuff that we do, is we have this diverse group of young people that are all talking about service, leadership, and education, but they all leading and moving in the same direction.
How do you handle the question when it's asked to you, and I'm sure it is, why can't my white son be a part of this group? Or why can't my white daughter be a part of this group? Have you ever encountered that? And how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think, in reality, there is benefit in bringing together young Black men and young Black women into a specific group, and for them to learn and lead and grow and support each other. The reason why, if you add a different race or mix into that group, you totally change the dynamics of the group. You totally change what's moving in that direction. So what you want to do is you want to lift that up, but then what we do is we put around them, they engage with successful other groups of folks as well. So they then engage with white kids or Hispanic kids in different groups. So our specific model is to focus on this group, help them, so then they can be better people. There are plenty of organizations that and plenty of groups that really focus on different dynamics, so we don't have to worry about that.
if you look at the narrative in the news and around us, it would appear that there is no hope
Mm,
for the African American race
mhm.
and the children, the young men and women that's coming up.
Yeah,
What do you say to that?
that's the reason why we have to have organizations like YBLA, because you have to show them what success and significance looks like, right?
Mhm.
And again, you and I, we have this level of success and significance, and that goes only so far. But if I bring in front of them young men and young women that are, again, near their age, that are doing well, I mean, we have young people. So if you look at our organization, we have 32 of them have started their own for-profit and nonprofit businesses.
Mhm.
Our college graduation rate is 96% compared to the national college graduation rate for Blacks is 42%. So we can show them what success looks like.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, it's like, if you don't show them what success looks like, then they won't know.
They
They
won't
won't
know.
believe that they can achieve it.
Achieve it, right? I like how you brought in the stats for college. I wanted to touch on that.
Yep.
The same friend of mine, he had another question.
Mhm.
Well,
We need to get
why?
him on the show.
I know, right? So why are you promoting in this particular program? I'm sure you've heard
I
this.
love this question.
I love it too.
Yeah. I hope he's
I love it
listening.
too. I hope he's listening too. Why are you promoting education, college education?
Yeah.
When most students go to college and they come out in so much debt.
Yeah.
And I thought about that question. I'm gonna let you answer it. And when I thought about just my son and preparing him as a leader and preparing him academically to be significant.
Yep.
It
Yep.
was, he knew that it was required of him as a kid that you will achieve academic success
Yeah.
in order to have your college paid for.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
was a requirement. So
Yes.
he knew that.
Mhm.
So when he went to college, he went to Palm Beach. He goes to Palm Beach Atlantic University, which is a $43,000
Mm.
school. No
Amen.
type of supplement or anything. He got a scholarship
Amen.
to
That's
go
right.
there. He got
That's
a
right.
scholarship to go there.
That's right.
So when he comes out, he'll have a small debt, no more than probably $8,000.
Yeah.
I gave him that example
Yeah.
because I would think it's more likely that the kids that are graduating from your program are getting scholarships and not graduating from college with a whole lot of college debt. But I'll let you explain.
Well, I mean, I can let the data talk for itself. Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's one thing. So last year, our 42 seniors earned $8.4 million in scholarships. The year before, 37 seniors earned $9.1 million of scholarships. So part of what we do is to educate our young people and their parents, because a lot of times there's a lot in there for the parents about, one, making the right choice for school. What you'll see is that a lot of our young people will make choices for schools based on the name brand of the school, right? And there's different name brands of school and it gets you different things. But if we can make the right fit choices, and the right fit choice is complicated, right? So there's three pieces, right? So one, when you go on campus, do you feel like you belong there?
Yeah,
right.
that's
So
important.
So what we see a lot of times with students, especially athletes, they go to a school because they got a scholarship and they don't fit there,
Fit in.
right? Or they go to school and they just don't fit there. So that's number one.
Mhm.
Number two is, do they have your major, right? I mean,
Of course.
do they have your major? I mean, we have kids, choosing schools and it's like, you want to major in that? You realize they don't have your major there, right? Oh, but still, And then the third piece is, can you afford it?
Can you afford it?
So what happens in our community a lot of times is, because we grew up the way we did, we want our young people to have whatever they want. And we don't think about college as an investment. And we also don't think about college as a wealth building opportunity. So college is either going to build your wealth or it's not, right? Now, surely there's lots of people going into school and coming out with debt, some of them have made bad decisions.
Mhm.
Some of them it's a great decision.
Mhm.
We know from statistics that, a college graduate is going to make about $1 million more in their lifetime, even than someone who just graduated from high school.
Mhm.
We also know they're going to live healthier lives. The
Mhm.
chances that their kids are going to be healthier
Mhm.
and the chances that they're going to vote and give and serve is greater. So we know that. But we also know for Black men and Black women, in reality, your best case has always been education.
Mhm.
Grandma knew it,
Mhm.
mama knew it.
Mhm.
They've been telling us that for our entire life.
Mhm.
So at some point, we kind of flip the script and say, oh, well, we don't need to go to college. Yes, college is not for everybody. There's
It's not.
plenty of ways to make money,
Mhm.
but you have to have a skill and a trade
Trade, you have to
somewhere,
have something,
right?
absolutely.
So our job really is, yes, we talk about college and statistics and stuff
Mhm.
like that. Our number one job is beyond leadership is to help you get a plan coming out of high school.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So what we see is those students who don't go to college have zero plan, right?
Mm.
Like that, I just want to, go work here and do that. That's not a real plan, right? So we want to make sure that they have a plan coming
Mhm.
out of school.
Mhm.
The final piece, which I love, because this is always a great conversation,
Mhm.
is I always hear the things like, hey, college is not for everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have yet to hear someone say that for a little white kid or a little Asian kid.
Mm.
They only say that for little Black kids, right? So why is that the case? When we start talking about get a career or go get a trade, they're not telling that to some of the other kids. They're telling that to our
Our
kids.
kids.
So
Wow.
why all the programs around trade happens to show up in our high schools?
Mm.
So,
Right,
so
right.
that's really the
That's
question, like,
nice.
are we actually having a fair conversation when you come and say college is not for everybody? Are you telling that to your kids as well?
Mhm.
Or is that just for those kids over there?
Wow.
So that's where we start to have a different of opinion in terms of our college system. We want the best for our kids, just like you want the best for your kids. So
right.
college is good for you
Right.
and your kids. Okay, where do we
Right.
go from there?
Wow, and we could probably spend the rest of this show
We,
unpacking
we
that
could,
one.
we could. That's why I love these
Oh
conversations.
my God, yes.
Tell your friend to call me.
Oh my gosh. And so, probably just lost my train of thought.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. That was so good because we want our kids to run the company.
we do.
We want our kids to run the company.
Right.
How do you help these young men and young women see how working together
Yeah.
builds our communities, working together? So many times in our communities, we don't work together.
Yeah.
You see other
Mhm.
cultures working together and building.
Yeah.
But with us, we have this, we're separate, you're separate. How do you train them to build something together? And we're more powerful together.
Yeah. I mean, I think logically they understand that. The only reason why us as adults
Mhm,
don't work together is because we've been trained not to work together.
mhm,
Right. So we've been specifically manipulated to believe that we can't work together
mhm,
when obviously we can, and
We
we've
can.
done it in our entire lives.
Mhm.
So what we do for them is they work in teams. So all the service project, all the leadership, they're on teams, they're
Mhm.
working together. We're intentional about putting collaboration together to help them to understand, one, how to work through it.
mhm,
Now, we have different nuances because of our culture and who we are,
mhm.
but we love each other. I mean, we get along amazingly and we can work together. We just have to make sure that we do that at a young age. So
Mhm.
again, this is being intentional. This is about developing our community. So if we figure that out, how to do that, it's great. So you'll have, again, one of our ambassadors on that's in the OPRO. They have their own investment club that they started out on their own. They put it together.
Right.
And it's cool. I mean, there's nothing that we did. We just brought them together and they started working on it.
Mhm.
So they work together on stuff all the time. They've started their own companies. They work together to do all that.
Absolutely.
They don't even come and ask me anything. They come and tell me about what they're doing, which is amazing. So they're doing great things.
So what is your takeaway from our children having the same playing field as others? Do you think that they will, and I know your answer, but I just want you to say, rise to the occasion? or they will not, if the playing field is equal?
Well, the playing field will never be equal. They will rise to occasion from where they are.
Now, why would it never be equal? Please explain.
Well, I mean, the folks, and again, this is just human nature across, and it doesn't matter about race or anywhere else. And I'll explain this with a short story. So I went to Poland. I go to Poland and I look around and at the history of what's happening, and I don't know the nuances around it, but there was a group in Poland that basically was taking over and controlling another group of Polish folk, and they're both Polish. I'm looking at them; they look exactly the same. Regardless of wherever you go in the world, there's always a power struggle, right?
Yeah.
And the people who are in power do not give power away willingly. So we've been struggling with this idea of, people are going to bring the issues down and make them equal and make the playing field equal. That's not the way the world works, unfortunately. If you want an equal playing field, you have to earn the right to be on that playing field.
And how do we do that?
And the way we do that is to work together, to be successful, to be significant, to make a difference, to inspire young people to work together and to build their own, right? Part of what they do is they build their own businesses, they're doing their own thing, they're employing people. So if you look at our organization, and just as a nonprofit, we're a small nonprofit, but we employ 12 people. And we have, you'll hear from our young people, they have their own businesses. We have a young man, I think he's 26 or 27, Roderick Carter, owns an international trucking company.
Wow.
He's talking to me about his employees in different countries. And that's how you create that equal playing field. You figure out what your niche is, you do that amazingly well. And with excellence, because then you convince people that, hey, I can work with a young Black man, or I can work with a young Black woman. They are doing what they need to do.
So we're talking about changing the narrative of how Black men and our Black women are viewed in society. When your students, we call them students.
Call them young leaders. Our young
When our
leaders.
young leaders, when
Yes.
your young leaders walk into, just say when they walk into a building, whatever it may be, before they open their mouth to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah, absolutely.
what is the expression from the other side of the room?
Well, it depends. So interesting enough, if we're in a group, if there's a group of us and we're dressed in suits or blazers or whatever, the first question we always get is like, hey, are you guys a team or a basketball team or a sports team or whatever? So people, Black and white, associate professional dress and young Black people with sports.
In sports.
So, well, if you want to change the narrative, we not only have to change the narrative for ourselves, we have to get other people to see us outside of being an athlete or an entertainer.
Right. And then when they open up their mouth to speak, then what is the impression?
Yeah. So then once they open up their mouths, they're like, wow, they're articulate, right? So they're very articulate, they ask a lot of questions because, again, we train them to ask questions, right? The curious mind. People are impressed by their curiosity, and then the responses that they have. You don't have to prod them to ask questions because they got a lot of questions. And most young people do.
Right.
We've trained them not to ask questions. Right. So what we do is like, hey, you're intelligent, you're articulate, ask your questions, challenge people, have the question, be respectful, but ask your questions.
Right.
And that's how in business, that's how it works. Right. So what you do is you train them how to be successful in business in high school. And the most successful families do that. Right. So if you think about people that are wealthy, that are doctors, lawyers, business folks, they have their young people in their business before they even graduate from high school. So we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it with groups of students and bringing them together and allow them to do that. So as an example, we have our young people, they'll go to Bank of America or Duke Energy, they'll meet with the CEO or the executives there. Their family may have parents that work in there that have never been to the same floor that they're on.
Wow.
So it's those types of things where we're increasing their social capital by introducing them to networks and groups of folks where they then get to take advantage of that.
That's awesome. You want it to be significant.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Can you say you have been significant?
I could say I've been significant. I've impacted hundreds, probably thousands of people in my life.
How
But
many people have come through your program since 2006? Do you have any data on that?
so come through the program and impacted is kind of two different things. Our young people have impacted over 20,000 people worldwide.
Mhm.
Come through the program, we've probably had about 1,000 to 1,200 folks come through the program.
Mhm.
And we continue to grow kind of every year.
And so it sounds when you say that, someone may think, oh, that's not a big number, but
right.
you got to remember
Right.
that a lot of the kids that are coming into your program, they're coming in at 11th grade
Yeah.
and they're leaving out as a senior.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of like a revolving door. So you're not with those students for a long length of time.
So we have students, so you'll see some of the students. So we have students that we're with. So the thing is, some of the students stay with us from high school, college, young professionals. So the cool thing is, we've worked with some students over 12 years. So Harold started in the program 10th grade, in his 10th grade year.
Okay.
He's a young professional. He works at SPX Flow.
Mhm.
So he's been through all versions of our program and now he's on our board.
Mhm.
So the thing is, it's not about numbers, right? So our thing is, what we want to do is build leaders. Those leaders, like I talked about, they impact other people.
Mhm.
So if I work with one person that impacts 1,000 people in their lives, my impact is now 1,001,
Mhm.
right? So, and then those people impact other people and those people impact other people.
Mhm.
It's all about leverage. It's
Mhm.
engineering at its finest, right? So you've created a system. So we're about system building, we're about change. So if you want to fix something, you can't keep putting Band-Aids
Band-Aids
on
on
the
it.
hole,
Right.
right? You got to go patch up the hole. You got to build leaders. So that's what we're doing. We're building leaders.
Okay. When you close your eyes,
Oh my God.
and we know that's
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Oh,
Yeah,
when I
let's go.
close, when I leave the world, all right. When my
what
spirit
print-
goes to the God.
what print would be left here on earth?
You know, for me, and Tammy and I, my wife and I talk about this all the time. It's
Mhm.
really about, well, one, I want my grandchildren's grandchildren to know who I was.
Okay.
I think that's super impactful for, I mean, that's multiple generations.
Mhm.
But then I also want, we're working on legacy building, like leaving scholarships for
Mhm.
folks. And then I want, I'm planting seeds that I'll never see the
Mhm.
forest, but I know that the forest is coming.
Mhm.
And I want that forest to continue to grow
Mhm.
into something wildly amazing. So as I'm in heaven looking down, I can say, wow, this is just amazing. You think about organizations that have been around for 100 years, how huge and how impactful they are. That's what we're building. We're building this global network of leaders.
That's awesome. And it's here in Charlotte now, but you plan to grow it to other places.
Yeah, so we've already done it. So we have students in Charlotte, Atlanta, DC, Maryland, Virginia. That's our high school program. And then we have college students in almost literally.
So you've gone beyond Charlotte already. Oh,
Yep. Absolutely. After the pandemic, we expanded virtually and then we started to put students in place beyond that. So for us, our goal is to have ambassadors in every major city.
how can a young Black student enroll in your program?
Enrolling is interesting. So you go to our website. We only
YBLA.org.
YBLA.org. We only do in high school. We just finished our recruiting. So our recruitment time period is typically August through October. You can only come in at one time during that time period. So next year it would be 11th graders, 3.0 Black students in Charlotte, Atlanta, or DC, Maryland, Virginia area. In college, we have our Black Talent Pipeline. If you're a freshman, sophomore, that recruiting will start in January. And then our young professionals, we're relaunching that. We'll kick that off sometime Q1 or 2 of 2023 will be the recruiting time period. So just stay on our
connected
website,
to ybla.org.
ybla.org, follow us on Facebook, YBLA Leadership. Follow us there, and then either way, you'll follow us.
So do you have scholarships for students who may not be in a position financially to afford this type of program?
Cool thing is, yes, we do.
Mhm.
So we have scholarships for students to participate in our program. And then on the flip side, we also give college scholarships away. So we're probably, not very many organizations do that. So last year we gave $70,000 of college scholarships away to our students as well. So the cool thing is, if you need financial assistance, we have that. But then we also have college scholarships as well.
That's awesome. How can the community support your program?
They can give us money. That's all. It's always a great thing. Sponsorship. They can sponsor students for scholarships. They can sponsor students for transformational experiences. On our website, there's a donation button if you want to do that as well. You can also sponsor a scholarship. Harold, who will come up, actually sponsors a scholarship for students that goes to students in our program. So you can always do that. You can reach out and volunteer. So we always have opportunities to volunteer as well.
And again, ybla.org.
YBLA.org.
Finally, what are the 3 takeaways from this conversation our viewers can personally apply to help them become better leaders?
Yeah, I think, one thing is you got to think about what's your level of significance, like who are you impacting? That's the biggest thing. Like, you can be successful. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners are successful. They're taking care of their family, doing things in their community. But how do you uplift someone else? So that's like number one. Number 2 is, how do you change the narrative? There's a narrative. Don't feed into that narrative. So there's lots of things that we personally do to extend the negative narrative that's out there. How do we do that? And I think the third piece is, reach out to a young Black person that needs your support, and find a way to support.
I would like to thank my guest today, Mr. John Martin, the CEO and co-founder of YBLA. I would like to thank the other co-founder, which is Tammy Martin, his wife. And she's not here today, but I wanted to mention her. Thank you for being on the show today. I'm sure my viewers received a lot of nuggets that they can apply to their life, to live a life of significance.
Awesome.
Success and significance is the key. Success and significance. What are you going to do to help someone else? What are you going to do to build up your community? What are you going to do to give back? It's time for us to do our part. I always say personal success. Success is personal. And you've been given a God-given talent, and it's time for you to get up, wake up, and let's get to work. This has been Melissa Johnson of WOW Ministries with the Brilliant Black Man Show, with my guest, Mr. John Martin of YBLA. And let's give his website again, ybla.org.
Awesome.
Thank you for being my guest on today. Have a wild kind of day.
Thanks for tuning into The Brilliant Black Man Show with Melissa Johnson on the TransformationTalkRadio.com. For more information and to watch any of the past inspiring interviews of the BBM shows, you can follow the tour at The Brilliant Black Man Show on YouTube or WowMinistriesLLC.com. These successful men's stories are worth sharing with the world. WOW Ministries, inspiring the world with The Brilliant Black Man Show.